Cassville students plan to protest this district's demanding return to spanking corporal punishment. Because, as I have recently learned through this course, conservatives do actually consider children to be property, all in but name. The school district in Missouri has announced it will reinstate spanking with a paddle in classrooms this school year. Punishment that is proven not to work, that I'm pretty sure psychological studies have said that corporal punishment just creates distress and trauma, does not create any good habits, does not create any good results. So this is basically just causing pain for causing pain's sake. Restating torture in classroom. This sounds like some medieval methods. The Cassville School District Board approved the policy change in June and recently notified parents. So I'm really wondering, what do the parents have to say about this? If I were a parent, I would be absolutely against my child being hit by a paddle. If I knew that a school district that my child would go to would hit my child with a paddle, I would simply either protest this, or if this was possible, I would change my child's school or the whole district if need be, because this is ridiculous. Ridiculous. The disciplinary measure was previously banned by the 1,900 student Berry County District in 2001. They already knew this was bad in 2001. What is your mind state that you think that children should be hit and abused more? And conservatives are supposed to be the ones that are like against. I bet conservatives are for this, even though they always scream how they are the protect the children party. Cassville Superintendent Marilyn Johnson said parents had expressed frustration that corporal punishment was no longer allowed. Crazy parents, I swear. Because parents want children to be punished more. Parents have said, why can't you paddle my student? And we're like, we can't paddle your student. Our policy does not support that. What? Let me guess. Those parents used to be paddled themselves and are just bitter and horrible and think if we went through a horrible thing, then the children should go through a horrible thing as well. I bet that's the case. I bet that in a moment we will learn that the parents went through the horrible paddling themselves and simply want the children to go through the same thing. Watch me. I'm calling it now. I think I'm correct. Let's go. The new policy allows the use of corporal punishment, but only as a last resort. Well, who determines what a last resort is? Who determines if the last resort is necessary or not? Like, anyone can just say, this was the last resort. I've spent all other possibilities. Ridiculous. The policy also requires written permission from the parents of the student and the witness to be present. Well, yeah, but that's a given since the crazy parents demanded it themselves. What kind of a parents would sign off on their child being paddled? What sort of a parent would want this? Let's see if there's anything else in the article. Kalia Miller and Gabe Moore, seniors at Cassville High School, said they were distributed by board policy adopted in June and made public to families in the days leading up to the start of the 22-23 school year. I was really shocked because a policy like this hasn't been in place at Cassville since 2001, said Moore. Why is this shocking? It's shocking that teachers could not hit the children since 2000. This is shocking? Most students are scared. The fact that they'll be hit by a 30, 40-year-old man, and mostly women, are scary. That they'll be spanked or hit by a man with another guy in the room, and they would feel embarrassed or see it as call back to trauma. Well, no kidding. Of course it would. This is a horrible, horrible policy that basically instills that such punishment is acceptable and effective. And it's not. It's proven that it's not. Moore added, it's really frightening for a lot of students. Some students see it as abuse, and it is abuse. Oh, okay, so Moore is against it. Very good. It is abuse, and parents demand it. Missouri is one of the 19 states that allow school corporal punishment. The Cassville School Board recently adopted a policy that will bring the disciplinary measure back. Moore and Miller are at the forefront of student-led initiative called Students Against Abusive Policies. And let's make this clear once more, this is absolutely an abusive policy. As of Thursday, they said more than 100 classmates had joined in, and they hoped to continue to grow. I personally hope they will continue to grow as well, and that they will do anything that they can to protest and to fight against such abusive policy. We should all protest against such policy, to be honest. Even if we don't live in that district, even if we don't live in that country, we should be against such policy. Corporal punishment is honestly an archaic and completely pointless and irresponsible way to punish children and high schoolers, said Miller, 17. Why would parents demand? Well, we know why parents would demand such a thing. Okay, slow it down a bit. So I'm getting heated here. She said one argument for corporal punishment that she keeps hearing from parents in Cassville is that it was She said one argument for corporal punishment that she keeps hearing from parents in Cassville is that it was a punishment used on them in school and should be brought back because it's what they went through. I knew it. I called it. It's stupid. It's very petty. It's very vengeful. And it's very, very ridiculous. What? Miller said she disagrees with that logic. Logic? That's very, very charitable, calling this sort of thing logic. I went through a bad thing, and therefore children must go through the same bad thing as well? I cannot believe parents would be so stupid. This policy is demeaning. It diminishes us as humans, as people, she said. And it's true. It's absolutely true. Why would you want the young generation won't go through the same bad thing that you went through. Why would you want such a thing? It is, it is just not an efficient or successful way to deal with those behaviors that they say students deserve to be punished for or hit over more. Ex-Cassville teacher sent to prison for sextortion scheme involving 11 children. Well, that's... Superintendent says policy was suggested by parents. By parents. Parents don't... Oh. Parents really think that children are just property, items to be used and abused. Under the policy, corporal punishment would be used when all other alternative means of discipline have failed, and the option is recommended by a principal who administers up to 3 swats depending on the age of the student in front of a witness. This is really perverse. This is really, really perverse. A witness looks on as a teacher hits the students. This is sick. Only students whose parents sign on a permission form will be eligible for paddling. The others will not. Well, since it's suggested by crazy, abusive parents, I'm willing to bet that there will be children whose parents will sign this crazy form. Superintendent Marilyn Johnson said on August 23rd that the return of paddling was suggested by parents and emerged as an option after a survey of students, parents, and teachers in spring 2022 showed discipline issues were a shared concern. Because of course, why would you think of ways to communicate with the children, guide the children, teach the children, if you can just hit them and bully them into compliance? Of course. The district implemented corporal punishment this school year along with other changes, including restricting smartphones and other technology in the classroom and opening a success academy for students who have struggled in traditional school settings. Johnson said this week that relationship building and positive reinforcement will still be used to encourage good behavior. Johnson said the district will use detention and suspension in school and out of school to discipline students. Miller said she recently met with the high school principal and vice principal to get clarity on the new policies, including corporal punishment. Parents are horrible. She and Moore said the group called SAAP is organizing peaceful protests as early as Monday and plans to speak at upcoming board meetings. They will ask school leaders to take the policy off the books. It has been proven so many times that corporal punishment and physical punishment does not really work, she said. And their study, I could look up studies right now and it would just prove the point that corporal punishment does not work. It just causes more behavioral issues. But the thing is that parents that suggested it don't care. There are these kinds of parents that just treat children as property and want the children to go through the same bad experiences that they went through. They do not care if it works. They do not care that if it causes trauma or not. All they care about is their children going through the same horrible experiences that they had to go through. It's the same kind of people that get salty when college debt gets forgiven, that when people don't have to pay college debt because they had to pay it before them. It's a very petty and vengeful type of thinking, and we should really do away with it. Students say corporal punishment hurts school reputation. It does. I would never enlist my child into a school that uses corporal punishment. The students' leaders said the return to corporal punishment has grabbed headlines and created a backlash in Mississippi and across the U.S., as it should. There is obviously this negative view of our school now, and as it gets bigger and bigger and looks worse and worse, she said, for a good reason. You of course know. I mean, is it really a surprise that corporal punishment would make the school look bad? Moore, who said his parents are not opting in for corporal punishment, thinks the policy has put Cassville in a bad light. And that's totally correct. Now we are known for creating bad policies, he said. He wants to see the policy abandoned and for those who supported it to be held accountable in the community, though he did not specify what that meant. Should be just like, they should be branded as people who want abuse, in my opinion. I don't know any single classmate that necessarily thought this was a good idea, he said. Moore said that the district's return to corporal punishment is not consistent with the messages school leaders have been sending for years about individuals keeping their hands off of each other. He said that students have also long been told they need to give consent for someone else to touch them. God. It doesn't really matter if the parents are for this policy because the students should have the consent if they are going to get hit or not. Yes, the students, aka children, are not the property of their parents. He said, parents are opting in for their children to get abused. Correct. In 1977, the U.S. Supreme Court ruled school corporal punishment was constitutional, leaving the decision to permit it up to each state. Okay, is it just me, or does the Supreme Court, does the U.S. Supreme Court have a precedent of ruling really horrible stuff? Or is it just me? Roe v. Wade recently, and now I learned that in 1977, children abuse was ruled to be constitutional. This is really ridiculous. Mississippi is one of, okay, we said, other side, a parent's perspective. Dakota Russell, a Cassville parent, said he and his wife signed the form for the district to use corporal punishment on their children. They have 2 daughters, both of whom are in elementary. So they want their elementary school children to be beat. They want parents to beat their children. We trust the people at our school district to make the right call, he said. The right call is not to beat children. Russell contacted the newsletter leader and agreed to talk about the decision to sign the form. Okay, let's see let's see how a parent like this tries to rationalize such a decision. And I will drink water first. He said he'd prefer a child receive a swat or 2 at school rather than get suspended and miss out on learning in the classroom. This is This is horrible logic. Horrible, horrible logic. Too many kids don't learn that their actions have consequences, he said. And to me, when you spank a child and that child learns, well, if I do this, there's going to be a repercussion. It might hurt my butt a little bit. And to me, there's nothing wrong with that. Parents think in their mind on some weird level, and so we're like, this is just field over reels. Parents feel on an intuitive level that beating their children will teach them discipline and crap like that. When it's proven by studies, it is proven by studies that it just does not work. More. Paul. Mississaulians support higher teacher pay, open enrollment. Okay. Russell said he was spanked as a child, but sparingly and only as a last resort. There we go. Parents feel that if they went through a horrible experience, so must their children. You need to guide and mold your children to being productive members of society. I believe too many parents are trying to be their child's best friend, Russell said. I always had a healthy fear and respect for my mother and father, and knew if I got out of line, a spanking was a possibility. See, people like this do not know how to communicate and feel that fear is the best thing to teach people how to act, which is a horrible, horrible mindset. He said the possibility of receiving corporal punishment at school might motivate some students to behave, especially if other disciplinary measures, including loss or recess or deserving detention, have not worked. If things like this should not work, why not try better communication? Why not try things like that? Why default to corporal punishment? The thought of, man, if I get spanked, there might be a little pain on my bottom might stop a child, he said. Are you even educated on this topic? How do you know this? Is this just some personal anecdotal experience because you felt the healthy amount of fear? He can only recall a couple times that he or his wife administered swats to their girls, and it was done dispassionately with plenty of explanation. I explained to them why I do it, and I don't do it when I'm angry or mad or upset, he said. We have talked about what a spanking means. Cold expression that spanking does not make it any better. I'm reading an article about a school in the US wanting to bring back corporal punishment, hitting children with a wooden paddle, which to me is ridiculous and just shows, one, a lack in communication between teachers and students, powerlessness, and two, a horrible mindset of parents that basically say this. The parents say, since I went through spanking and being hit by teachers when I went to school, then that naturally means my children should go through the same thing. Stupid. Russell said he respects that parents have different ways of disciplining their children. I'm not saying that all children need to be spanked. I don't believe if one thing works for one child, then it works for other children. Every child is different, he said. This is really, really bad, and we should oppose this wholeheartedly. We should organize protests. We should not be going back to hitting children. I did not think that would be a controversial statement, but we should absolutely not be hitting children.